I made a video called Invincible's Power Consistency Problem, and a lot of people agreed with my sentiment that characters' strengths fell all over the place, and others disagreed, some offering unique and articulated responses for how I was incorrect, but others used the indisputable, incontrovertible, and irrefutable fact that Mark is just holding back. This blanket statement seemed to serve as the ultimate shield for the writers, allowing Mark to be humiliated, bested, or just utterly fail whenever the writers deemed it necessary without explanation or context. And it seems a huge portion of the Invincible fanbase is eager to eat this up. And what's funny is that I agree Mark is holding back most of the time. His moral code keeps him from killing humanoids. But remember, Mark is a Viltrumite, practically a god amongst men. Even holding back, should Invincible really be losing? First and foremost, this video is written within the context of the show, same as my previous video, and not the comic book. I haven't read the comic, so I can't make judgments on that. So Mark is holding back. We know this to be true from the end of Season 2, where he literally screams it at Angstrom before quote-unquote killing him. In Season 3, we see this in action against Fightmaster.
Hey, I'm trying to hold back. I don't want to hurt him too much. I think he's just a normal dude.
In order to tell how much he's holding back, we need to know what Mark is capable of. Mark's speed is at a minimum of Mach 2.2 in order to ignite the atmosphere while flying in Season 2. But it's more likely around Mach 10 to 25 based on how great his ignition was. That's 7,000 to 17,000 miles per hour, which he's surpassed by 65% in Season 3. In Season 3, he's shown lifting an iceberg, and based off rough estimation, it would weigh around 30,000 tons, and he lifts it clean. His durability is also off the charts as he survives multiple supersonic punches from some of the strongest Viltrumites, and absolutely chilling in temperatures that may reach up to 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit or 3,871 degrees Celsius. Needless to say, Mark Grayson is an absolute unit. In order for something to harm him or even slow him down, it would likely need to be within the ballpark of at least one of these numbers, or have a way to harm him while ignoring his durability. So, what's the thing that manages to slow down Mark first in Season 3? It's multi-Paul. As I stated in my original video, it's abundantly clear Invincible is holding back here, and I use this example. Paul trying to stop Invincible would be the equivalent of a group of newborns attempting to stop an NFL linebacker in a full-out sprint. I apologize for using this example because it's inaccurate. It's closer to having the world's biggest strongman and trying to weigh him down with a couple feathers. Another way to break this down is like a word problem from our middle school days.
If Paul weighs 180 pounds and Invincible is able to lift 30,000 tons or 60 million pounds, how many clones would Paul need to jump on Invincible to stop him? A, 300, B, 3,300, C, 33,000, or D, 333,334 clones. The correct answer is D.
When placed in perspective, it goes to showcase how ridiculous this scene is and how contrived the stakes are. Mark could be holding back 99% of his strength and still push aside every clone like pushing a balloon out of the way. Next, we come to Doc Seismic and his Centipede and Worm army. Off the cuff, Mark could have just easily grabbed Doc. He's significantly faster than he was before, and we've witnessed him grabbing objects and even people at high speeds without causing any major harm. Just grab both hands and what is Doc gonna do? He can't activate his ability if you keep his hands apart, and breaking the tech would be really easy for Mark. Even Invincible just sort of sit around and wait for Doc to monologue and summon his forces. I know this is a superhero trope, but it's still stupid.
You got me monologuing.
Even when the creatures first arrive, it's not like they're particularly fast. What's keeping Mark from ignoring them and grabbing Doc or freeing the other heroes? Even moving at a few 100 miles an hour would be enough to do the trick, which is only a percentage or so of his top speed. As for the durability of the Centipedes, we're given the reasoning that they are incredibly tough due to
These creatures were born deep in the fire and pressure of the Earth's womb.
and fair. Deep in the earth is uninhabitable for a reason. If anything could live there, it would have to be insanely tough. But roughly how tough? Since our heroes fight them in a place where they're able to withstand the atmosphere's pressure, we can't place the Centipedes too deep in the earth, or surfacing this high would result in their insides rupturing from losing the pressure they've adapted to. So let's assume these creatures are born in the upper mantle, about 40 miles beneath the Earth's surface. In corner number 1, we have the Mantle Centipede. dwelling in the harsh environment of the mantle, easily withstanding temperatures up to 2,550 degrees Fahrenheit. The pressure of their environment ranges up to 20,000 times the pressure of our atmosphere. Let's break it down before heading into Mark's corner. To be safe, we'll go with a substantially higher number and assume the skin of these creatures is capable of withstanding 5 times the pressure of their atmosphere, placing them at 100,000 atmospheres, or 10 gigapascals. In such a pressure, you'd be crushed like a soda can instantaneously. In order to penetrate this armor, Mark would need to output more than 10 gigapascals over the surface of his fist. So let's do some math. The average human fist has a contact area of about 0.0045 square meters, so we'll be using this formula. When plugging in the numbers, we get this jumbled mess. When translated, it equals about 45 million newtons of force, minimum. For context, the Saturn V rocket at launch reaches about 35 million newtons. And to pierce a rhino's skin with a fist would only require about 13,500 newtons. So this exoskeleton is ridiculously strong. In corner number 2, we have Mark Grayson, a half-Viltrumite, species feared throughout the galaxy and said to be... Does he have what it takes to pierce the unstoppable shell of the mantle centipede? Time for some more math. Mark can lift up to a minimum of 30,000 tons. We can find how much force that takes by multiplying mass times gravity, which gives us this, which equals about 294 million newtons, over 6 times the required force to break the armor. Wait, hold on. This is lifting strength and not punching? This would be Mark pouring everything into one punch, which people can't do. So we keep this as an unreliable maximum. Professional fighters are typically able to output anywhere between 30 and 50% of their maximum strength into one punch. Untrained individuals can only achieve about 10 to 20% of their maximum strength. Since Mark is relatively trained, we'll give him the 30%. So some simple math of 294 million newtons times 0.3 equals 88,200,000 newtons. Almost doubled the required amount to pierce the exoskeleton. That means his fist would carry almost as much force as the peak pressure of a small nuke per square meter. And this isn't even the max output because we haven't considered his speed. Now this can get a bit tricky to calculate, but I'll do my best. Mark's weight is listed around 200 pounds, so we'll list him as 90 kilograms. And we can either use deceleration distance, which is the distance over which an object comes to a stop during a collision, or impact time, duration over which a force is applied during a collision. Mark multiple times comes to a stop very quickly when striking a powerful blow out of flight, so we'll keep the deceleration distance relatively low, just 0.5 meters. And for impact time, we'll measure it as 0.01 seconds, a commonly used time when measuring a punch. So these are the formulas I'll be using to calculate how many newtons he produces while flying and punching. At just Mach 1, 767 miles per hour, and a fraction of Mark's top speed, using deceleration distance, we would come over to 98 million newtons. And with impact time, that would be 91 million newtons. By the time we reach Mach 5, using our deceleration distance, Mark reaches 353 million newtons of force, almost 8 times the required strength. Impact time is much smaller, estimated at about 103 million newtons, but still well beyond the force that he needs. Are you beginning to understand how unimaginably overpowered the creators of Invincible have made him? Mark is only a mid-tier Viltrumite, and this may even be the low end of estimates. So unfortunately for our creepy crawly friends, they would get absolutely crushed. Mark even holding back is well over the force required to break their exoskeleton. Granted, Mark throwing punches this powerful would result in massive shockwaves that could damage the people around him or the cave itself, but these are some of the toughest people Earth has to offer. And since Mark is not fighting a human, his moral code doesn't dictate that he holds back. Of course, this is all hypothetical, and I seriously doubt the writers thought this much through. It probably just follows the logic of creature born in bosom of the earth is tough. But if you're going to use that excuse, everyone, Mark included, should be freaking out that the man who practically has 2 mini nukes tied to the end of his fists can't penetrate the armor of these centipedes. Instead, we're given a few pitiful punches with little shockwaves and generic thunks. Literally no one reacts to this. Cecil is just butthurt over being bested by Doc Seismic and out of Heroes Descent. As for the centipedes injuring Invincible, I'm not really sure. It's a bit up in the air because we know Mark's skin is thick enough to survive hypersonic punches from other Viltrumites who are even stronger than he is. But durability doesn't mean he can't be cut. We've seen a few instances of sharp objects penetrating Mark's skin with enough force, like the Viltrumite dagger. So I guess this may be overall believable? But what's not believable is these creatures actually managing to hit him because of how much faster he is. I also struggled to see them capable of the same strength Mark is. Also, we love this moment. Alright, moving on. In my previous video, many people point out how the Mauler twins' gun ignores his durability and attacks the nervous system directly, which after some discussion, I now overall agree with. We see Mark is affected less, so his Viltrumite makeup plays in somehow, but I'm not here to argue that. Instead, he had no business getting hit. He dodges the first shot, on foot, on reaction. He's able to avoid it without using his super speed, and dodging something usually is a sign that one doesn't want to be hit by whatever attack was thrown. The Guardians are also paralyzed right next to him, so they would be a great indicator not to be hit by the nerve gun. Having Mark in this situation is the fault of the writers. Realistically, he should be able to disarm and overpower the Mauler twins with relative ease. In Season 2, he fought against dozens at a time, until he was eventually overwhelmed. Now he's over twice as strong and significantly faster. He's clearly on guard, yet they animate him flying as fast as I would ride my bicycle, and he gets hit. Then a few scenes later, he snatches Cecil before anyone can react. Him and Oliver even blast off at high speeds from a float. This is stupid. Almost as stupid as the thought of having a gun lying around that can stun a Viltrumite. Why hasn't Cecil mass-produced this? He has all the pieces. Man, people would have been pissed if mid-fight Conquest got stunned by one of these. Next we have the fight against Mister Liu, which Invincible is clearly holding back to a freaking comical degree. Let's set the scene. Mark is hired to protect this prison, which a dragon is attacking and actively killing prisoners in his way. As of now, Mark doesn't know Liu can heal, and Mark decides the best way to protect the prison is use a fraction of his strength and keep the fight at the actual prison. Like, look at these wimpy JoJo looking punches that Liu literally brushes off. There's hardly a shockwave from the impact from most of his blows. This could just be Amazon being lazy, but it's what I have to work with. Some people may argue Mark is holding back to avoid unnecessary damage to the prison and trying not to kill Liu. But it's Mark holding back that leads to more damage and more deaths, and his big hit on Liu was a kill shot. He crushes his skull. Eve was able to push Liu out of the cell block by herself, and Invincible easily lifts and slams Liu. Why doesn't Mark just force him away from the prison where he can use more power? The one time Mark actually manages to injure Liu is after he's taken on some serious damage himself. And here is where he tops out on speed and strength in this fight, which is still under 10% of his maximum that we measured earlier. The shockwave of the blow is relatively small and it doesn't even damage any surrounding structure. He doesn't even swing, he just flies with his fist out. So you're telling me Mark is deciding to actively hold back at minimum 90% of his strength while facing a threat capable of killing him, actively killing others, destroying the prison he's hired to protect, and threatening his girlfriend. Like, I'm not expecting 100% from Mark here. Or, since hearing about how strong Liu is from my previous video's comic section, expecting him to win. But make it believable, man! As it stands now, this prison scene just screams bad writing. To keep the outcome the same without making Mark look like an incompetent idiot, they could have Mark fighting Liu at about 30 to 50% strength where he's able to constantly injure him, but Liu keeps healing as Mark gets more and more tired and injured, until he's eventually overwhelmed. Multi-Paul is free, Liu is established as an immortal, unstoppable threat, and Mark still appears incredibly strong. We don't even see Mark try to gauge how much strength he should be using. Every one of his blows until he crushes Liu's skull at most pushes Liu around. In this fight, Mark almost lost to Liu without him needing to use his immortality. You know, the actual aspect of his abilities that makes Liu unstoppable? The last fight I'll be covering in this video is with Powerplex. I'll be brief. Obviously, Mark did not lose this fight, but he did fail to save the hostages, even if they were fake ones. First, somehow Powerplex manages to outrun Invincible in this scene, which is bullcrap. Once again, Invincible is able to move at incredible speeds while grabbing objects and avoiding harming those around him. He could have easily grabbed the fake hostages and evacuated them from the building. Or if Powerplex did manage to get in front of him, why not just pull an Immortal from episode 1 and chuck him into the sky and catch him later? Mark was aware of Powerplex's abilities and decided that a jumping spin kick with enough force to punch him through a wall and send him 30 feet was the optimal solution. Like, what are you thinking? Why not just push him out of the way, grab the hostage, and come back? He'd still have charge, but significantly less. This wraps back around to those contrived stakes that I spoke of earlier. Having Mark hold back is not a bad way to make him struggle or explore his character and moral compass, but the show makes him so abundantly strong that even holding back significantly, he would be more than capable of facing the threats he often does. Conquest and Anissa both overpowered Invincible while holding back. Conquest did lose because he held back, but only because of Eve and Oliver's help. Well, more Eve. The strength gap between Conquest and Anissa to Invincible is likely smaller compared to the many threats Invincible faces himself. We only see a few times where Mark is genuinely too strong to be injured by a villain he is facing. Meanwhile, most villains are able to draw blood or injure him in some way. Compare that to the shock of Anissa when fighting against Alan and she got a bloody nose. Alan and her are both surprised at the damage done, and these characters have traveled the galaxy and been in innumerable fights. You can allow someone to lose and make them not look or feel weak, like when Mark punched Omni-man in their first fight. It had no effect because of how much stronger Omni-man was, but the sound design and effects made us believe there was a lot of power behind it. If it was just a matter of Mark holding back, we should witness him reassess how much strength he should be using and adjust accordingly. At the very minimum, he should be matching the strength of who he's facing. So I'd argue this isn't a problem of Mark holding back, but a writing issue. This video isn't to say that we need exact power scaling on everything and this entire series needs to make perfect sense regarding every ability and fight. No, this is the superhero genre. There's bound to be inconsistencies and characters overperforming or underperforming. It would destroy any fun the series has if it was reduced to power scaling numbers. But when you create a character that's practically a god amongst men, capable of toppling planets, and part of the species that is feared throughout the entire universe, you best believe I'm gonna ask questions when I see him getting overpowered in incredibly high stakes situations. And you better have some dang good reasonings when he does. And I'd argue, in most cases, the series doesn't. Mark holds back. That's a fact. But Mark is so incomprehensibly stronger, faster, and more durable than a majority of the enemies he faces that even holding back significantly won't give them an edge. And to the ones it does, why would he hold back to the point where it is clearly jeopardizing himself and innocent people around him? I guess that can work canonically if Mark is just really dumb and overconfident despite getting mortal wounds every other weekend. So yeah, Invincible's whack.